We see here the first two plagues that strike are plagues with reference to the Nile. The plagues or the strikings that God brings against Egypt happen in really three collections. The first two are about the Nile. The second lot of four refer to the land, and then the last four refer in some way to their gods of the sky. This was the whole of the Egyptian philosophy and economy, was the Nile, the land, and the sky. And these first two strike at the very heart of the gods of the Nile. Here's Pharaoh, and he's going out in the morning to bathe, just as you see the irony all through the story. He's going out to the Nile to bathe, just as his daughter had done when she found Moses. She found Moses and took him in as a baby and raised him. And now here again is Pharaoh, a member of his household, meeting Moses in the bank of the Nile, but this time it's for judgment. This time the blood of the Nile is not running red with the blood of the Hebrew boys. Now the Nile is going to run red with the blood of judgment against the Pharaoh that murdered them all. Here's Pharaoh, and it's likely that he's bathing because he's rich and privileged enough to be able to sort of afford that leisure. It wasn't common practice in Egypt to bath in the Nile, but he was the Pharaoh, and so the royals did that. Maybe he was going out because a frequent practice in Egyptian worship was to go and take, sometimes they would take it to the Nile, sometimes they would do it in the temples. They would take up their stone and wood idols, place them somewhere, and wash them in the water of the Nile as an act of worship. Maybe he's going out to sing the hymns and to watch the washing of the idols. But here we see why God focuses his first striking, his first right hook against the Nile. Firstly, because as we recapped a few weeks ago, the Egyptians believed the Nile to be a god. It was this divine presence that had manifested itself on earth, and it is still to this day one of the most fertile, amazing sections on the face of the planet because of the river systems that make up the Nile. They worshipped it as a god. They had the gods Khnum, Anuket, and Satet were the guardians of the Nile. They protected it. Let's see how good of a job they do at that today. They're protecting the Nile. And then you have the gods Nu and Osiris. And they really, in some way or another, give the life to the Nile. They are the source of the Nile. But the main god that they worshipped as in connection to the Nile was Hapi, H-A-P-I. Hapi, as we said a while ago, he was in fact androgynous. He was neither fully male nor female. He was intersex. As the male portion of his gender identity, he would fertilize the ground, and touching his she part of his preferred pronouns, he would fertilize the ground with the water, and so the ground around the Nile would be fertile and giving of food. He was pictured. I'm just going to read what the Egyptologists tell us. He was pictured as a male with a pot belly and female breasts and stubble, which sounds like he works for the HR department and enforces the diversity rules, right? And we all know this guy. You've met at least one of these guys. Pot belly, fake breasts, he, she, right? That's what's going on here in Egypt. And they worship him as this androgynous. This was a power that sort of put him above the natural bonds of our single engendered bodies. He's this power that he can transcend them. And of course, my question, I read the lists of their gods in Egyptologists' record, and I just think, why? I'm sure you asked this. Why would they worship that? What about that is attractive that they would give themselves over? And in their designing of these gods, they make him pot belly, greenish skin, fake breasts with in fact it was a strap-on beard. How in the world is that desirable? And of course the answer is just the same as, well, what leads somebody to dress up? What forces a man to put on a dress, or to put on makeup and to shove his shirt with socks, or to chop off appendages given to him by God and then walk out in a parade waving flags in the city? What leads men to do that? Any thinking person has to say, we don't know. If you're asking for logical reasons, you're asking the wrong question. It is not logical reasons that lead these kind of gods to manifest themselves or people to give themselves in worship to these kinds of beings. The answer is, why do demons back then and today bring about such thinking and actions and worship in the world is simply because it diminishes the glory of God. Why did they do that? So that they might strike at the very heart of God's created order. Why do they do it today through the systems and the diversity departments and the marches today? Why do they do that? Well, because it rebels against the knowledge of God. They try to throw off God's created order, and they try with all that they can to diminish the glory of God that is in the created order. This is what humans do. This is what demons empower. And this is what cultures of sinners do.